What is good people? You are now listening to another episode of Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth. I am your humble narrator, Danny Foxworth, and to say that this guy is an extremely special guest would be an extreme and gross understatement. I had the pleasure of getting to know this brother at one of our mutual hangouts, that Great Harold's Cabin, and got to see him during their farewell send off, and it was bittersweet, but it was also great to catch back up with my kindred spirits. And so my guest here, Charleston, South Carolina, husband, father, veteran, doctor. This man he wears very many hats, and we're going to get into all of that. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, my guest for this evening, the great Dr. Melvin Brown. Doc, what's going on, man?
Hey Danny, how you doing, man? It's good to hear your voice and see your face.
Likewise, man. This it's always a treat being in your presence.
I appreciate that, man. Danny, you mentioned Harold's Cabin. We go way back to the opening Harold's Cabin when they were serving breakfast.
Yeah. Oh man, don't even get me started. That was the spot. Going in there, doing my New York Times crossword puzzles on Sundays. Man, so many great memories in that establishment.
I mean, just the fact of what you just said, being I'm from Charleston and it was great. I grew up in this neighborhood and it was great to walk into that place and see it kind of become a neighborhood place. But it was also kind of special to walk in and just see your brother sitting there reading the paper. I
Yeah.
mean, you just don't see that too much.
So speaking of Charleston, let's take it back to the very beginning. What was life like growing up in Charleston for a young Melvin Brown?
Okay, so I'm older than you, Danny. I was actually, who knows, because Danny can fool you how, he looks so young. But anyway, I was born in 1969 and I grew up in the downtown Charleston area that back then we called West Charleston or Uptown. Now they call it Hampton Park Terrace because you have to have fancier names for things now. But when I was growing up in this neighborhood, I would liken it to maybe a Brooklyn or something like that because this neighborhood was actually predominantly an African American neighborhood, and it was full of people from all levels. I would say working class, blue collar, and white collar black families, and we had a little bit of, or a smattering of white folks that were still left over from the initial build out of the neighborhood. So, for all intents and purposes, I grew up in a working class black neighborhood with some professionals and homeowners, and people were in every aspect of my life. So, I hear stories about how hard it was to grow up in the South, but as a kid, I gotta be honest with you, I thought things were pretty good. The store was owned by an African American person. My church had a mix, but just about everywhere I would go, I would see that until I guess it was time to go to school. Then things changed a little bit for me.
So what was the Brown household like?
The Brown household was yeah, full of impressive people actually. My mother was a high school teacher and not just a high school teacher, but she taught chemistry and then physics in high
Oh,
school. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. A little bit about those two. Both my parents were teachers when they met. Um, my dad always jokes that, he was the stupid one because he taught some odd science classes, but to coach basketball, and that's how he got his job because he was a basketball coach. And my mom taught the hard sciences, and they got together. And back in those days, you couldn't have a romance in the school; it was inappropriate. So he had to take another job at a different school and take less pay. Well, he said that's unacceptable. One, he wasn't going to be getting paid less than my mom, and two, my mother, who was a bad woman, she went to college on a dance scholarship and actually had gotten accepted to medical school, and she
Really?
decided not to go to school and marry my father. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the setting of my household. So my father left teaching to go into the entrepreneurship. First, he sold insurance, and then he started a business with a minority business loan from then President Carter program to spark minority business. And he opened up a defense contracting firm, and he told my mom he was going to make sure that she was never sorry that she didn't go to medical school, and he made good on that promise.
Wow. Love to hear it, man. So
Yeah.
attending Porter-Gaud. So what was it that attracted you to Porter-Gaud?
So it's funny, I was just telling some kids this story recently. So I grew up in the neighborhood, but I didn't go to school in my neighborhood. My mom ended up getting a job out in the suburbs, and back then the brand new suburb, the flashy suburb, was West Ashley. And so my mom got to go teach in the high school in West Ashley, so I could go to elementary school out there. So I didn't go to school in the city with the other kids in the neighborhood, which used to get me into fights, but that's a whole nother story. Um, But when it came time for middle school, my mother, who was a teacher, she was concerned about what would be the best move for me because a lot of the middle schools that were in her district were having trouble. Back here at home, the middle school, the kids kind of thought, um, we were kind of sedity.
Hmm.
So she thought that those guys were going to kind of after me. A lot of black students were going to Catholic school on the peninsula then, but my sister, who's older than me, she kind of got herself a bad reputation. She was the quintessential smoking in the girls' room kind of student. So so we said, my dad was saying, "Oh, I make good money. Let's put him in private school." Now, your private school choices were Porter-Gaud, Charleston Day, Miss Mason's, Charleston Prep, and there was another one I'm forgetting right now. Well, the three of them, not Charleston Day or Porter-Gaud, but three of them were what we called segregation academies. These were private schools that opened up right after Brown versus the Board of Education came down, and they said we got to enforce integrated in schools. These three schools opened up so that the kids on the peninsula didn't have to go to the public school, black kids. So those are out. So it came down to Porter-Gaud for that reason. And I had a cousin that actually went there. But anyway, went to Porter-Gaud in sixth grade. And my mom was a little nervous. She thought I was going to act strange going to a school being a one black child amongst so many people.
Hmm.
And my father said, well, you got him in this, that, and the other. And we got a big family. We'll keep him on the road. He said, I'm not worried about it. So I ended up at Porter-Gaud and I actually ended up loving it, man. It was a great
Nice.
experience. Education, great people.
Cool. So what were some of your favorite memories at Porter-Gaud?
Well, after the first couple months of kind of getting adjusted and really, I mean, when I say I was one of the few, that school was first grade through 12th, about 750 students, and there was six black students.
Wow,
So,
man.
yeah, yeah. But one of my favorite memories is when you're in a small school, you get a chance to try a lot of different things. But I think about my friends that were at the big schools, like let's say I had my friends that were over at Rhett Middle School or headed to Burke. If they wanted to play some basketball, you had to really be exceptional to play basketball. But at a private school, you could try out different things. I played football, I did track, but I really found my singing voice. You don't know this, Danny, but I'm a great tenor.
No kidding.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things to do is sing. And I found that voice at Porter-Gaud, and I was encouraged to develop that skill. I actually had a chance to go professionally, go to graduate or go on to college from music. But Dad said, hell no.
Man, I'd learned something today. I never knew that.
Yeah, yeah. Full of surprises, man.
Yeah, you're like a Swiss Army knife. So
Yeah.
after you graduate from Porter-Gaud, and then it's time to make a decision on which college to attend, and you made the decision to attend the U.S. Naval Academy. So what went into that? And
Right.
went into you making that decision?
Okay. So both of my parents went to historically black colleges, and back in those days, um, the mentality was I had to go to an historically black college, but you are the next generation, and we want you to go to Harvard or Yale. Well, Danny, I didn't put in a Harvard or Yale performance in school, but I was trying to access some of the best schools that I could get into. All right. So one of the things I started learning about, when I was in 10th grade, I got this award from the West Point Society of Charleston for leadership because of all the things I was involved in. And I didn't even know what West Point was at the time. I didn't realize there was a naval base in Charleston at the time. So I started to investigate this a little more, and I found out that there was a military service academy, and it was sponsored by the federal government, and tuition and everything was free, and you were guaranteed a commission in the services when you graduated. I said, wow, there's somebody who's not sure what he wants to do, because everyone, when you get in 11th, 12th graders at a college prep school like Porter-Gaud, I was like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? I didn't know what I wanted to do, Danny. But the idea of kind of getting through an education um, and having something waiting for the other end was attractive to me. Also, Danny, I tell you, in my neighborhood, I would get kind of picked on. I was a nerd, and my dad was doing well, and so the guys used to call me. They used to say, "Man, you'll be fine. Your father just covered for you. Your dad, your old man, could pay for anything." And brothers would come at me that way, and I was like, I wanted to prove a point that I could do something on my own. So getting a scholarship was very important to me as well. And lastly, I was a bright kid, but I didn't have the best work ethic. And I figured if I went to military school, they'd probably keep me on point. So all
Yeah.
those decisions went into it.
So what was the parents' reaction whenever you made that decision that you were going to go to a Navy?
Well, my mother cried. She, she thought she was like, I never thought of my baby being in the military. And my father didn't hear Harvard or Yale, so he was kind of just really didn't react at all. But once the idea set in, I got in. Well, it was a long time before I got in because I actually got waitlisted. I was actually going to go to Vanderbilt University. But anyway, I got waitlisted, and my father was talking to people. And when the idea set in, when I got offered that his son was going, he was talking to other people in his profession. And they said, man, you got it made. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you don't have to pay for college, and your son's gonna have a great degree, and he's got a job when he comes out. So my father, after talking to his friends, he was very happy.
So when you once you got to the Naval Academy, what was the adjustment like for you?
My parents were always pretty much I wouldn't say strict, but they were pretty much straight up. They're like, you're gonna get out of it what you put into it. If I mess something up, they're like, well, let's review why you messed it up. And eventually it would come to you didn't do what you needed to do. So they always kind of made me accountable. But so that when I got to the military academy or Naval Academy, and they were running you around and making you learn responsibility and leadership and things like that, it wasn't too hard an adjustment. It was more an adjustment just not having access to my friends and family. See,
Yeah.
back then you didn't have smartphones, so you wrote letters, and if you wanted to make a phone call, freshman year, you were allowed to do so very specific hours from the phone booth. So that was an adjustment. Uh, the stifling heat I was used to, but not wearing new uniforms. Uh, but I
Yeah.
would say, but really, honestly though, it was actually the right place for me. They have a saying at the service academies. They say it's not a great place to be, but it's a great place to be from. And that's really true because you do Annapolis, Maryland, where I was actually right between Baltimore and DC. And I had friends at Howard University and American and Georgetown in DC, and I had some friends at Loyola in Baltimore, and I would visit them and I'd kind of see the life they were living as 18, 19, 20-year-olds and having a blast and going to parties. Sometimes that was a bitter pill to swallow. But I was doing something different. I realized it, so I didn't get too angry about it. And when you have adversity that you deal with in military school, the friendships you make are unparalleled anywhere else.
Man, so what was your favorite course to take at Navy?
Nothing to do with my major.
Oh, let's talk about it.
No, so you pick a major, best, yeah. So I was 17 when I graduated and didn't turn 18 till October of my freshman year in college. So you sit there with an 18-year-old that was just 17 a couple weeks ago and say, hey, what do you want to study for 4 years? You're like, I don't know. I called my dad. My dad said, well, at my company, the engineers make a lot of money coming out of school. So I said, I'll do engineering. That was it. I had thought about medicine back when I was in high school, but when I was in the thick of it with college, the idea of going to college, then going to medical school for 4 years sounded crazy to me. So I went for the engineering degree. But I will say one of my favorite electives, or two of my favorite courses. One was literature of the sea. You had to take an English elective there. It was an engineering school, but you had to take an English elective. And I took an elective called literature of the sea. And just even to this day, Danny, I still read books about adventures at sea because it was such an escape, and it actually got me excited about being in the Navy. Um, in high school, we always had to read certain books, and The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway is one of them. And in high school, you're forced to read it, and you're like, whatever. The old
Yeah.
man liked to go fish. Yeah. Then I read it again in college, and I was like, I'm getting this. I'm getting why it is great to be out here at sea. And I'm getting the solitude and isolation and independence. I love it. So that literature class was really good. And I didn't mention this, Porter-Gaud, love it or hate it, they are great at making good writers when you graduate. So it came easy to me. It had me thinking I should have done a liberal arts degree or history degree in retrospect, but I stuck with engineering. And the second course I really liked in engineering was strangely enough a course called life support systems. And it was basically about diving science. All the science that goes
Really?
into diving, going below certain atmospheres, coming up at the right time to make sure you don't get the bends. All the science behind it. I don't know, man. I geeked out on that stuff. I loved it. But those are two of my favorite classes.
I love it. So, what made you switch majors from engineering and pursuing the medical field?
So I ended up graduating with a degree in engineering, and
Okay.
the uh, the Naval Academy does not encourage you to do anything but become a combat officer. So um, my GPA was not great. If you wanted to go to medical school from the Naval Academy, you had to be the second coming of Christ. You had to have a 4.0 and talk to enough people and get letters because they did not encourage you to do that. Maybe about 5 to 10 people a year would go medical. I was not able to do that. So I went into what's called surface warfare, which is the word for the warships. You could go surface warfare, be on ships. You can go submarine warfare. You can go aviation, or you can go Marines or Special Forces out of the Naval Academy. So I went surface warfare. I took my engineering degree, and I was a ship's engineer. And I was at sea for about 4.5 years straight on a destroyer and a frigate. Great travel, by the way. I can't afford to travel the way I traveled on that ship. We went to the Mediterranean. I've been to every country in Europe. I've been to every country on the Black Sea. I've been to
Wow.
North Africa, Turkey. Uh, I was all over that junk, as we used to say. And travel is the best education of all, Danny. Oh, but you asked about medicine. So I did that, and I actually, when you go to sea in the Navy, they give you a tour that they call a shore tour. You're out on the ship for all that time. You get to come home for a couple of years and kind of decompress. So my tour brought me back home to Charleston. I taught ROTC and engineering classes at the Citadel for the Navy for 2 years. And while I was there, I said, well, I'm enjoying being away from the ship. I don't think that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. What I want to do, start thinking about medicine again. I was like, dang, my grades aren't that good. So I went to the Office of Diversity at the Medical University and talked to Dr. Thaddeus Bell. I don't know if you've had him on your show or not, but talked to Dr.
I
Thaddeus
need
Bell.
to get him on the show.
Me too. And he said to me, he said, well, you should have done better in school. But I can't remember her name. Talk to so-and-so, and she can help you figure this out. He said, because there's other paths to get into medical school. So I sat down with the lady, and she said, well, let's see what your GPA is. You start plugging it into a formula thing. She's like, ooh, that's not high enough for med school. She says, oh, but you went to the Naval Academy. I was like, yeah. She's like, for state medical school, we add 0.6 points to your GPA, which now qualifies you for medical school. I was like,
Really?
what? Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. She said they recognize that you guys have to take 20 to 21 credit hours a semester, military science, military stuff, all that stuff. They said that's worth something. So I qualified. She said it probably would be a good idea for you to take some classes to show that you have the ability to manage the coursework. So I took night school at the Citadel. I teach during the day, and I was at night school at Citadel at night. And I actually did enough coursework to get a master's degree in biology and education.
Wow.
So that was another degree, and I applied for med school and got in. Called the Navy up and said, "Hey, I got into med school." They said, "Well, you want us to pay for it?" I said, "Sure."
Why not?
Why not? During that time, my father had passed away and my mom was comfortable, but I didn't want to lean on her for any money. So
Hmm.
I said, send the check. So that's how I ended up in medical school.
And what was that experience like for you?
Medical school,
Yeah,
um, I learned that one can actually love school when they're studying the right thing.
that's very important.
Yes, my daughter is a senior in high school right now, and she says she wants to be a doctor. Um, I'm proud of that, but she's like, "Should I major in pre-med?" I said, "You have a beautiful voice. You love the arts." I said, "Major in that, and it'll not be that hard to make good grades, and you can take your prerequisites for med school." I told her, "Your grandmother, my mother, majored in modern dance, you know, and she got into medical school. So do what you love." A lot of times, particularly first generation college kids and students, my wife is part Asian. Asian cultures do this a lot too. Everyone thinks go to college, study what you want to do coming out. I say to people, if you know what you want to do coming out, you can study anything as long as you have a good GPA if it requires you to go to graduate school. If you don't know what you want to study going in, try to find something that you like that can also translate into a job when you graduate. If you have no idea what you want to do and no idea why you're there, the price of college, you're going to ask yourself, why the hell are you there?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So back to medical school,
Mhm.
what was that what was that like for you? Like as far as like the as far as like learning and application.
Yes. Well, so I had the engineering background. I've always liked the sciences. So then I had the human being. And the hardest part about medical school is applying engineering concepts to the human body. Well, I had that on lock. Danny, I loved medical school. I didn't really consider it hard at all. Um, Studying was not a stretch because I loved learning it. I had found what I was supposed to do. So the first 2 years of medical school is all the books. And I actually was able to get into a special program at MUSC. Traditional med school is you sit in this lecture hall for 8 to 10 hours a day, and hear all these lectures, and you have tests, and you spit it back up, and that's all. Well, I was able to get into the special program at MUSC, which was called the parallel curriculum, or where it was learning based. It was learning based, meaning we would be in groups of six, and we would get medical cases, and we would do independent research and study, and come back and discuss it and teach one another.
Really?
It was a program that worked well for more mature students, and that's what I did the first 2 years. So I loved it. I love learning. I love that way of learning. And I was back home too. It was nice being back home, hooking up with some old friends. Being back in the old neighborhood. Neighborhood started to change. I started learning the word gentrification back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, um, but then the next 2 years of medical school, it's 4 years. First two was all books. Second two was rotating in the hospital. And I enjoyed seeing patients. I found that I had a knack for seeing patients. Um, it's probably I don't know if you dive into this too much, but it's probably one of the times in my life I do remember too that every once in a while you get a reminder that you're a minority. Um, because not every doctor was happy to see a black medical student. Um, Not every doctor was willing to train or consider me worth their time, and sometimes that did happen. Not everywhere, and I don't want to disparage the name of MUSC. I'm big into MUSC, but back then, this is not too long ago. This is 1999, 2000. Some of the physicians saw African American students as a quota, and they treated you that way,
Hmm.
you know? So I had to deal with that, and I'd say that's probably less than 10% of my experiences there, but it was they cut, they hurt. Um, to this day, I tell friends of mine that there's probably medical specialties that I really would have preferred or liked more than what I did, but I just couldn't see myself in it because of my experience in medical school in a Southern school. Case in
Yeah.
point, I love engineering, right? Or
Hmm.
I was good at engineering. I didn't love it, but I understood the concepts of engineering and I love the body. That's really well matched for an orthopedic surgeon. It's all about tools and angles and things like that. But the orthopedic surgeons traditionally are frat boys, you know, and they were not very welcoming. I mean, don't get me wrong, not all of them, but some, they were nice guys. But in general, when you walked into the department, let's say there's 30 orthopedic surgeons at MUSC. At the time that I was there, they were all 30 white males who all went to schools in the Southeastern Conference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You
I can
know,
only imagine.
yeah. A couple of them I actually knew from high school who'd gone to Porter-Gaud, and they were nice, but they were definitely like, keeping it cool,
Yeah.
So I was like, dang, I would have liked to have done that, but I'm not trying to hang out with those dudes. And if that's the way it is, I'm not interested in that, you
Right.
know? So when I graduated med school, I ended up I was thinking about medicine, internal medicine, pediatrics, um, and emergency medicine because those were the places where I saw diversity, and I thought those were the places where I saw people. So that was the direction I went graduating from medical school.
And then after you graduated,
Mhm.
you going into the actually being a full-fledged doctor. So what was
Yeah.
that what was the first day like for you?
Internship. It was is this a family show?
You can say whatever you want.
It was an oh shit moment. It's like, I was a student. I was a student yesterday. Now I'm a doctor. And I had this long coat on, and when I walked through the hospital, people would go, "Doctor, I need help over here." I was like, "Oh."
Just out the frying pan and into the fire.
I was like, "I don't know nothing. That was my first day." You
So
know,
go ahead.
But no, I'd say no. It's amazing. That's the first day. And then 4 weeks later, you kind of feel like, okay, I can do this. Just
And
enough to be dangerous.
you literally just answered my next question. I was going to say, how long did it take you to get accustomed and adjusted to the rigors of that environment?
Well, a month to figure out enough to know what people were asking me to do, where things were, stuff like that. Actually being comfortable. Um, a lot of doctors will tell you maybe in their third or fourth year of training after med school, but the military doesn't give you that much time. Um, the military, after your first year, your internship year, they make you go out to the fleet to be a general practitioner before you can come back and finish your residency training. So after 1 year, which is around the time when I kind of felt like I might be able to do some chest compressions and maybe sew some people up pretty soundly.
Yeah.
They said, "Okay, time for you to go out to the fleet." And I was a ship's doctor. I got sent to a ship with 600 sailors. 300 sailors, 300 Marines on it, and I was the only doctor on the ship. So I was the
Wow.
primary care doctor, preventive medicine doctor, and I was the emergency doctor if something went down on the ship. But let me take 1 month step back. Internship is 12 months, 12 different months, 12 different departments. And my last department was the emergency department. And I think I told you I was a pediatrics trainee. So I was in the emergency department and I found my mentor. I tell you, sidebar, it is so important in life to find a mentor. Okay. So I finally found my mentor. Some of the things I told you about that I struggled with MUSC, this continued into residency. The Navy traditionally is not as integrated at the time as the Army was as far as the officer corps.
Hmm.
So to see a black officer was still kind of an anomaly in the Navy, and to see a black officer that was a doctor was also an anomaly. So people were still trying to figure out what to do with me. Anyway, I found my mentor um, in emergency medicine, and he uh he was a person that did not care for the politics and everything and just liked to do medicine and do his job. His name was Bill. And he only worked night shifts. So I went to my supervisor and said, "Hey, can I switch my schedule to just work night shifts with Bill?" And they're like, "You want to work nights?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Go ahead." So I spent the month just working night shifts with him and talking about life and medicine. I gained confidence because in the ER, sick people would come in. He was so confident in himself and in me that he was like, "Fix it. I'm not going to jump in unless you tell me to." So I gained that. I gained that, and then he would sit down and talk to me about medicine. So much so that I told at that after that rotation, I said, "I no longer want to be a pediatrician. I want to be an emergency medicine doctor. I want to be a lifesaver."
Wow.
So told the Navy, I said, "I'll take my ship, but I'm not coming back to this. I'm coming back to do emergency medicine." So I was out on the ship 2 years, best years of my life, being a ship's doctor. I loved being the doc. The guys loved or had confidence in me. They liked me being their doc because they tell me right just like people can tell when you're sincere, and they just wanted to know that somebody was there looking at that for them, watching their back, and wanted to make sure they were okay. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's
And when,
that's that's important, and kudos to
yeah,
you for that, and kudos to your mentor as well.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, Bill still doesn't like people. He lives out in Montana now.
Man, I love it. He really leaned into it. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
getting away from everybody. I respect it.
Oh yeah. Except his wife.
So,
Um,
which, go ahead.
no, I was saying I was a 2 year tour on the ship, and then I came back to the hospital, and then I was able to get accepted to the emergency medicine training program, which was pretty competitive in the Navy. And I did 3 more years of training in Norfolk in emergency medicine, and graduated from residency, and got assigned to I got assigned to Japan. That was pretty cool. You'd love Japan.
Wow.
You would love Japan.
Yeah, that's on my list for
Yes.
sure. So, what was it that you loved about Japan?
What do you love about Japan, Danny?
Oh, I know nothing about Japan. I'm saying that's on my list of places to go.
Yeah, what do you know about the culture? Tell me, and I'll bounce off of that.
That I know very little.
Okay. You seem to be a man who likes animation.
I am.
Yeah. So you know anime and Japan anime happen? We good?
Okay, you were talking about animation.
Oh yeah, animation. Yeah. So you get there and Japanese people are pretty buttoned up. They're very polite. Okay. Very nice. But that is for show. They are just jumping inside. And that's why you see these manga comic books and this crazy anime stuff, and you hear about all the freaky stuff and all that kind of stuff. That
Mm-hmm.
stuff is bubbling to the surface, and it is there. You walk down the street, you would think these guys are in lockstep. Everybody's on the same page. You can understand how that country almost took over the world. Okay, but then get some drinks in them, get them at night, close the doors. Whole different Japan.
Really?
Fascinating. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My wife is a child of the military. Her father was from Beaufort and her mother is from Japan. So
Wow.
it's, it's quite an adventure for her to kind of see the culture there up close and personal as a grown up. Kids loved it, you know. I mean, just the stuff you can do on the weekends, the things you could see. They loved it. It was a good tour. The only downside was I got deployed to Afghanistan during that tour.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So what was that like going to Afghanistan?
So when you go overseas, you're not supposed to get deployed, but somehow they were running out of officers or something like that, and they needed somebody to go to support the Marines. And I can say this now, I'm out of the Navy. I was in a department with a couple of scaredy cats, some sorry officers, and I said, listen, I'll go. When you're emergency medicine or general surgery, you pretty much in the Navy. I don't know if you know this, but the Marine Corps is in the Department of the Navy. And so when you become an emergency medicine doctor or general surgeon, your butt belongs to the Marine Corps first. When they go, you got to go. So I was in a shock trauma platoon, they call it. It's got two emergency doctors, two surgeons, an anesthesiologist, a nurse anesthetist, and all the support team, nurses and corpsmen that go with that. So the unit is about 30 people. and we go to Camp Lejeune for training together, and then we went to deploy in Afghanistan in the desert in the middle of nowhere, and set up a tent, a field hospital. I don't know if you ever watched the show MASH. It was
Hmm.
like that. And that was a hell of an experience because having been on the ships and having leadership experience kind of helped me out because a lot of the doctors don't get the experience that I had. So I was immediately put in a position of being in charge of that unit and the coordinating everything. And it was a good tour for me, a lot of accolades, but most importantly, made more great lifelong friends in that adversity. But it was also probably my first chance to develop PTSD. I did not. I think I found out that I'm wired for this medical thing, but there was definitely opportunities to develop PTSD because this was in the early phases where we weren't sure how to find those innovative explosive devices. So
Mm.
every week we had some young cat coming in, young men just blowing up, cut in half. Seeing that for a while, that was tough. But was glad to have been there to give those guys a chance. Um, because we found out you get them off the battlefield, get them to a unit like ours, stop the bleeding, patch them up, fix the bones, things like that, emergency surgeries. We were doing it, man, and we were good. And it was amazing to see that if you got injured on the battlefield, they got you to my unit within 1 hour, and then we would patch you up and put you on a helicopter, and you could be back at Bethesda Naval Hospital within 18 to 24 hours of being injured on the battlefield, the way that system ran.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That's a tight ship, man.
Yeah, yeah. They get hurt, you come to me, we bandage you up. I'd work on the bones and the lacerations and bleeds and things like that. The surgeon would open them up, find the bleeders, pack it. They wouldn't sew you shut. They just tape you shut, right on the tape what they did. Because if it was on a chart, it could get lost in the helicopter. Then the helicopter would take them to Bagram in Afghanistan. They do a little more surgery there because there was a bigger military hospital there. Then they would put you in an airplane and send you to Bethesda Naval Hospital. So it was me, Ruby. That's my dog. It was an amazing thing. It was amazing to witness, and I was proud to be a part of it. But back to Japan, and for a reward, we went to Thailand and uh, Vietnam, and then Osaka.
Wow. So you making your way all around Asia.
Oh yeah, had a great time.
And then after Asia, what was the next move?
So at that point, I'd been in the Navy 16 years, and I could have gotten out, but I talked to an accountant, and he was like, "Man, you hang in there longer, you're gonna have a pension." So we're like, "One more tour, baby," to my wife. I wanted to go to Seattle, but Seattle's Naval Hospital was closing down. Military was downsizing. Political pressure was to cut back on some spending. So I looked at Jacksonville, Florida, because I was just looking for a place that might be cool. One more place to live might be cool. And I was like, oh, Jacksonville's got a sports team. It must be a
Hmm.
cool city. So I took Jacksonville. By the time I got there, I was like, Jacksonville is just a small town with a million people. But we spent 4 years at the Naval Hospital in Jacksonville. Son went to high school there. We had a good time. The city was pretty warm and welcoming, but I was ready to get back home to Charleston. So as soon as my 20 years hit, I retired and came back home to Charleston in 2015.
And then going back into the civilian world,
Yeah.
was there what was that adjustment like becoming a civilian?
So not having to be somewhere all the time, not being deployed, not being told to be there and here and there all the time, that was different. The medicine was different. In the military, you get used to doing medicine without a bunch of bells and whistles around. You don't have technology available to you. You don't have referrals around when you're in the ocean or in Afghanistan.
Hmm.
So that you learn how to practice more old school medicine. But I had been learning the new medicine because when I was in Jacksonville, I was moonlighting at the civilian hospital. But I started working full time when I moved to Charleston. I took a full time position at Trident Medical Center in Trident, Somerville. So I had to learn to adjust my medical practice because after being there for about a year, great reviews, good patient outcomes, everything like that. But one of the things they said I was not doing well at was I was not ordering enough blood tests and CT scans.
Oh, okay.
Because medicine is about those fees, getting those charges.
Yeah, boy, I'm telling you. Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah,
So after your tenure at Triton Medical,
yeah,
then you take a leap of faith and branch out on your own and start your own practice. So what was
yeah.
that like?
Well, I was getting sick of the way of medicine. So MUSC is a teaching hospital, it's a state hospital. Roper is actually called a not-for-profit hospital. It's half owned by doctors. But Trident is a pure for-profit hospital. It's owned by the Hospital Corporation of America. And Hospital Corporation, think about them as the house, and the house will never lose. Okay. When we went through COVID, I became disenchanted with the system. COVID hit New York and major cities like that, and it was devastating, but we were sitting pretty good in Charleston at the time. So we kind of had time to prepare for it. Well, when COVID hit Charleston and they had to shut down a lot of things, hospitals lose a lot of money. Hospitals make a lot of money from daytime or day procedures like getting something cut off your skin or getting a colonoscopy or a quick surgery. They make a lot of money off of those things. But those things had to shut down for COVID because you couldn't have people in these open bay rooms. You couldn't have people in waiting rooms.
Hmm.
So the only thing working in the hospital was the emergency room and the inpatient ward. Okay. So the hospital was taking a big hit on their revenue. So the leadership of the Hospital Corporation of America, they made a big decision that to alleviate or attenuate some of the loss, they would let go all the part-time people. So all the part-time people were put on let go, whatever word they used, put in inactive status. And when you work in the emergency room, your most valuable resource is the experienced nurse. An experienced nurse probably is married and has children. Okay. A lot of them are not married and have children. Okay. And they're the breadwinners of their family, but they have to be home. So they can only work part-time. Full time for a nurse is 3 12-hour shifts. A lot of our nurses worked 2 12-hour shifts because they had family commitments. Well, when they did that, all of our experienced nurses were let go.
Wow.
And when COVID hit Charleston, we were fighting COVID with nurses who had just come fresh out of school, and they did the best they could. But man, we had people who were coding and dying in the waiting room, man. And I was just like, this is unsafe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got through it, but I was just disenchanted. And growing up with my parents, the kind of parents I have, and being in the military, say when you find something is wrong, you're volunteering to fix it. So I got myself one of those executive coach counselor type people. I said, hey, I think I'm ready for leadership in the civilian world. Let's do this thing. So I was working with her on being a chief medical officer. That was going to be the job I was going to shoot for. Um, I had some interviews, got offered a job. Matter of fact, while I was doing this, chief medical officer job opened up at Trident and Trident Somerville. So
Wow.
I applied. Yeah, I was like, how serendipitous.
Yeah.
So I applied for that and I interviewed, and the interviews went great. They're like, we love you. We want to hire you. I was like, great. They're like, do you want to go to Riverside, California or Vero Beach, Florida? I said, wait a minute, I was applying for the
Wow.
job. They're like, well, they said Charleston and Somerville is one of our bigger hospitals, and you're new to us. And in our system, we start you at a small hospital before we bring you to a big one.
Oh my God.
Well, I don't want to move. I'm like, well, that's way worse for us. I was like, just let me get this right. So your chief medical officer role, I didn't mention this, Danny, but I'm on the board of trustees at the university. So I said at the medical university, so I said to them, I've been on the board of trustees for your number one competitor for the past 4 years. I'm from here. I'm an emergency doctor, which means I know every damn doctor in this hospital. And you're saying that you don't think I can roll right into this and be successful? They're like, well, it's our policy. I said, well, that sounds a lot like something I'm used to called the Navy. I retired from the Navy. Thank you. Goodbye. So,
Dang.
but my the counselor said, well, you seem to really love people and love seeing patients. You need to figure out a model or a place where you can do that. So I started investigating concierge medicine. And in concierge medicine, people pay for the doctor. The doctor is not a slave to the insurance payments. The doctor's patients pay him on a monthly basis, and the doctor, by that with that support, does not have to take 2 or 3 thousand patients to make ends meet. He only has to take a couple hundred patients,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good. And I love it. I spend 30, 60 minutes with my patients. I see at the most 7 or 8 patients a day. Um, my notes are beautiful and they mean something. And when I have a patient going through something, I have a little checklist. I'm like, oh, let me call so and so just had his colonoscopy. Hey, how'd it go? Hey, doc, thank you for checking on me. You know, that's my life now. I don't make it's not as lucrative as the hospital, but my quality of life is tenfold.
And people don't realize, especially when you reach a certain age, how important quality of life is over
Yes.
over salary. Because I mean,
Yeah.
you can make a tremendous salary and still burn in, but if you're burned out, I mean, what's it worth?
What is it worth? What is it worth?
So
And
how long?
this
Mhm.
too much. This may turn into a better seller. Who knows? But I'm enjoying it right
And that's all that matters. And
now.
kudos to you for making that leap of faith slash transition. And now you're in a much better place. And
Uh-huh.
seriously, salute to you.
Thanks, brother.
And also, as far as black patients, how often do you run into them at your practice?
Well, I ran into him a lot more in the ER
Mm-hmm.
because, and I realize this, but the emergency department is the primary care doctor for a lot of black people.
Yeah,
Well, I should say they're the primary care doctor for people who are underinsured or uninsured.
yeah,
When you don't have insurance or you don't have the best insurance, trying to get an appointment with the doctor is impossible in a lot of cases. And if you can, it's usually 6 to 8 weeks out. So you go to the ER for very routine things. And I saw a lot of African Americans in that setting. Now I don't see as many because of this concept of when I sit down and talk to a black person who's coming to see what my practice is about. They're like, "Do you take insurance?" I was like, "Well, I do take insurance for your blood work and your X-rays and seeing referrals, but we also do have a monthly fee here." And they're like, "Will my insurance pay it?" Like, no, that's after tax dollars. That's out of your pocket. Like, really? So I pay for insurance and I have to pay you? Yes. I was like, why would I do that? Because I'm asking you to pay me for the privilege of being able to be your doctor on your shoulder, that angel on your shoulder.
yeah,
Keep a close eye on and I tell them, I was like, listen, I know this is not for everybody. We charge $200-300 a month depending on the level of service you want. And I said, I know that's no little bit of money, okay? But you had to decide that that's your health and your relationship with your doctor is worth that money.
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things out there that we spend $200 or $300 on a month.
That's true.
Okay? I challenge you to find somebody who's not spending $600 a month on their car.
Good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's not for everybody, but the people who I've signed, I've been taking care of over the past almost 2 years now. They come back and say, best money I've ever spent. Even if they don't see me every day, but when I'm
Hmm.
there, they love it. They love the fact that when I call my doctor, I can see him. My doctor calls me back. They love it. It's just country medicine, man.
And one of the things I always stress, especially with black folks being on top of their health, is also having a doctor that also cares about their cares about their patients as well. I'm real big on that, and that really does go a long way. And just developing that symbiotic relationship, it's like, I mean, it's so important.
It is. It is. Listen, I take care of all people, and with my background, I can take care of a diverse group of people. But I do notice there is a certain comfort and relief when I have a black patient in front of me, um, because they feel that I understand some of the things that they're trying to portray or get across. They
Hmm.
also feel like being better looked after. Now, Danny, I'll be honest with you. Now, once in a while, now, particularly when I was in the emergency department, once in a while, you do come across a black person who's not so thrilled to see a black doctor. There's still some people who have the mentality who think that you aren't as good.
Yeah.
Okay. There are still some who also see a black doctor and say, you ain't all that. They take that attitude. So that happens from time to time. And it happens from the majority as well. Particularly when I was out at Trident, you see folks from smaller towns and more rural settings, and they see a black doctor. They kind of look at you with amazement from time to
Yeah.
time, you know. But back to your original question, though, yeah, I don't think that a black doctor can only be the doctor for a black person, but there is definitely some unspoken communication and understanding in those cases. Um, let's take mental health, for example. One thing I learned going back to Japan is how important it is to have a therapist or mental health person that speaks your language.
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
And it, and in that case, it was that speaks Japanese, but also that knows what it means to be Japanese. You know, the pressure on their cultures to perform and be the best of what you do is something that American kids aren't faced with. Japan is all about find what you're good at and do it until you die. Americans are like, "Oh, I want to try this. I want to be an engineer now. Now I want to be a sing now. Oh, I want to be a doctor now." And you can do that. When I would tell them my story, they were amazed. They're like, "You were an engineer and now you're a doctor? That's not heard of here." To know that that's a part of their culture is important. So for me, I find myself to be a very good doctor for African Americans, but also a very good doctor for people who grew up in Charleston because that has a story.
Yeah.
Very good doctor for people who are in the military. That's another culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can come at you all kinds of ways, man.
Man, and kudos to you for, again, just going above and beyond to be of service to so many different communities. That is seriously to be applauded.
Thanks, brother.
And now we're going to switch lanes for a minute. So
Okay.
after building this rapport with you, I also realized that we're both kindred spirits when it comes to hip hop. So again, I was always, whenever I talk hip hop with people, I'm always curious, what was the first moment that really made you fall in love with hip hop?
Well, the standard answer for a 54-year-old is myself always has to start with mentioning, sucker MCs or rappers delight. And
Yes.
for me, it's not so, I mean, the music was good, but don't get me wrong, but it was more an independence of being able to go to the record store on the bus, having enough money to buy a 12-inch single, because it didn't quite have the kind of cash to buy a whole album,
Yeah.
coming back to the house and just listening to that song over and over again. And my first single was, well, my neighbor across the street, he bought Rapper's Delight. And then I went and got some money together. I went and bought Rappin' Duke.
Wow. Come on, man. Duh, 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 duh. I love that record.
You know it.
Yes.
We would just listen to those over and over again because we were just happy we could buy something that was something we heard. We thought it was something no one else was listening to because in Charleston, Z93 was the station and they were slow on the uptake for hip hop.
Yeah, they were.
You had DJs that would go out of their way to say, "This is Z93 playing the hits and none of that hip hop." They would say
Yep.
that, you know? So we would have to rely on the network of kids that had 12-inch singles to listen to music. But it really hit me in college. One weekend I went to go see my boy who went to Princeton, Dwayne. And at first, I was going to Princeton, big Ivy League. Okay, let's see what this is. So I go to Princeton, all these old buildings, looks like a movie. And I go to Dwayne's dorm room, and it's about 20 brothers who went to Princeton sitting in a room. And Dwayne had just gotten this brand new album, and they're all there to listen to it. And this is 1988, 89, I can't remember. And this album had all these psychedelic colors on it and these drawings on it. And I was like, "What is that?" He's like, "Just listen." And he puts it on, and this guy starts scratching like crazy. And then this off beat, break beat, and this guy just rapping into kind of a low tone. And I was like, damn, I like this. I was like, who is this? He goes, it's this new group called De La Soul.
3 feet high and rising.
3 feet high and rising. And we sat there with sandwich was what they call them in New Jersey, the sub sandwich grinders
Mm-hmm.
and natural light beers all afternoon, just listen to that album start to finish. And I was like, I'm in this Institute of Higher Education, the highest, Princeton University, with some brothers listening to De La Soul. I had a moment, Danny. I had a
Oh,
moment.
that's awesome.
I
So,
almost went to tears. Hmm.
and so what are some of your other favorite hip hop albums?
So I wrote a few notes to kind of give you a timeline.
Hey, let's go.
So it was just singles before I went to college. Rappers Delight, White Lines, Don't Do It, Sucker MCs, Rapping Duke, Backstabbers. That was kind of just it was just singles going up to there. So then I get to college. Oh, right before college, I took the Run DMC cassette. It had Rock Box on it. It was just the album Run DMC.
Yeah.
That was probably my first cassette that I bought. When I was in school, I told you about the De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising. I had a cassette for Houdini.
Oh,
I
come on,
really
man.
love 5 Minutes of Funk.
Yes.
And Freaks Come Out at Night. I did. Oh, I forgot to tell you, in high school, I bought the UTFO album. That was
Oh,
my first
man.
album. Roxanne, Roxanne.
I want to be your man.
Yep.
Oh, man.
So, so there's a 3 Feet High and Rising experience in college. I came home for Thanksgiving, and this girl who went to Cornell University, another Ivy League school, she turned me on to the PE album, Rebel Without a Pause. What album was that?
Oh, my God.
Oh Lord. Fear of a Black Planet.
Yes.
Wow, that Terminator X, that man, I was like, what is that noise? And then I said, I love it.
I had the same reaction. I'll never forget the first time I heard it. I was riding with my Uncle Gilbert. We were in McDonald's.
Uh-huh.
And because he was the person that really introduced hip hop to me. And the first time I heard it, somebody else was passing by in this Toyota Celica blasting it. And I had the same reaction you did. If the first time I heard it, I was like, it sounds like a tea kettle.
Yes.
I was like, what is this noise? Whatever this noise is, I need more of this in my life. And man, it was, oh my gosh. And sorry, just to take it back further, you mentioned the Sucker MCs. That was the
Yeah.
first rap record I ever heard, which also was with my Uncle Gilbert. We went to Northwoods Mall one Saturday.
What's all?
We were going to Sears because he was going to look at washers and dryers. And
Uh-huh.
as we pulled up in the parking lot, another guy pulled up in this Toyota. It was like a dark blue Toyota Cressida in the parking space right next to us with all four of his windows down. And when I heard DMC's voice, it sounded like Thor. Like if he rapped, oh, DMC in the place to be, I
Place
go
to
to
be.
St. John's University. I'm like 5 years old and I'm spellbound. And my Uncle Gilbert saw my reaction and he was like, you like that? I was like, yeah. He said, I'll tell you what, after we leave Sears, we'll go to Record Bar and we'll see if we can find it.
Record bar.
Yep. And he bought me the cassette single and it was a Sucker MCs, and this like that was the B side.
Yes. 2 big hits.
Yes, but
Man.
man, you took me back talking about that Rebel Without a Pause, man. So continue with your list. Sorry to get
Oh yeah.
sidetracked, but
First of all, I love that you mentioned Toyota Cressida and Toyota Celica.
yes, there's specificity in these moments.
Because at that time of my life, my dream car was the Maxima.
Mm-hmm.
Those Japanese sedans were killing it.
They
And when
were
you go to today, the taxi cabs are old Cressidas.
really
Yes.
wow.
Yes. Like long wheelbase Cressidas.
Those were my favorites.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so I'm in the college phase. So this is 1987 to 91, PE De La. Um, NWA was all right, and I was in Annapolis, and that was when they came and performed in Maryland, got arrested for singing, "Fuck the police,"
Yeah.
and so they were all right. I enjoyed them and everything. It was a thing, but I loved Ice Cube when he came out with
Yeah.
that album, that song "Jacking for Beats."
Oh man, give me that beat, fool. It's a full-time jack
It's a
move.
full-time Jack move.
Chili chill, yo, homie, let the track move. That goes for every Tom, Dick, and Hank. That's the name of the suckers I done ganked.
Suckers down.
Oh, man. See what you done started, man.
So that song and all the beats that he took and everything like that, and he
Yes.
jacked them. He made them better,
Yes.
you know. And I was like, "This is my dude." And
Yeah.
then he came out with what was his next album? I don't know if it was Dead on Arrival or Life Support. I can't remember, but
Death certificate?
That Certificate. That's it. Yes,
Yes.
That Certificate. From start to finish, one of my favorite all-time albums. Ice
Yes.
Cube. Really love Ice Cube, man. The other albums weren't as great, but they all had great tracks. I love Really Though by Ice Cube,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny because I love Really Though by Danny Brown, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Hey, come on. Come on. Me too.
Oh, man. But so the big thing about college, so De La Soul really opened me up. But the soundtrack to my life, Danny,
Mm-hmm.
to my 20-something-year-old life, okay, was a Tribe Called Quest.
Let's
It
get
was the
into it.
soundtrack. Is the hip hop and the OMTV raps and everything. No, these cats were in Jersey and New York, and it was cold, and they had triple fat gooses and stuff like that. We tried to, but we couldn't wear that where we were. I mean,
Mm-mm.
you sweat your ass off down there and
Yeah.
stuff. So it was exotic and far away. But then Tribe came out, and they were just cool, casual, their own styles. Baseball cap. I was wearing baseball cap to the side, and I used to wear a leather necklace with an ankh on it, you know. And I had the Gerbo jeans and the Timbos and the button down. Those cats look like me.
Yeah.
They look like some brothers I could sit down and rap, talk to, and have a good time with. Phife, the 5 foot assassin, my favorite on the People's Instinctive Paths of Funk and Rhythm. Was Phife did one song, and I was like, "Who is this Phife guy?" And then the second album came out, and Phife did "Bugging Out." I was like, "Done."
I'm in. I'm in.
The lyrics were tight. I mean, Q-Tip was smooth and he made those beats, but Phife, the lyrics, man, God,
Butter.
I
Butter
love
was
Trip.
probably the first song that I memorized
Butter.
from beginning to end.
Me too.
1988
That's
see
Crazy
me at
Runs, and I'm
Barbie
smooth
High.
like butter.
Yes. All the girls were corny, but the girls were mad fly.
Yes, and we lived that.
Yes.
So, as a side note, I love all kinds of music, and I used to listen to the Smiths a lot. And when you listen to Smith's Morrissey, he is always just talking about how anxious and awkward life is for him, and it speaks to you as a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
especially for a teenage black kid trying to figure it out in the big world. It speaks to you. And I felt like Fife was that voice too. He was a short brother who was smart, intelligent. He had a talent, but you could tell he was talking about the women he was hooking up with. You could tell there was an air of, yeah, you wouldn't look at me now, but hey, hun.
Yep.
I mean, you wouldn't look at me then. Yo, look at me now. And I felt that because I was that nerdy cat that couldn't get the girls, and so it spoke to me, man. So
Mm-hmm.
the Tribe Called Quest. What else do I have down here? Main Source. Um,
Ooh,
love Main
Breaking
Source.
Adams.
Splitting Atoms. Looking at the front door. Again, just I feel you, dog. Biggie Smalls. I was in college when Puffy was at Howard and Biggie Smalls was coming on, and everything spun out from there. Craig Mack, that whole. I loved that. I loved all of them really except Puffy. As far
Yeah.
as rappers. I have to give, as far as West Coast, I like some of the West Coast stuff, but I didn't love West Coast stuff, but I did love Dell. Of course, I love Tupac, but I have to give homage this time of my life in the 90s to KMD,
Mm-hmm.
because that would be the rapper that if you ask me now, who is your all-time favorite rapper? MF Doom.
Oh, you mean this guy right here?
Remember, you and I bonded on MF Doom.
Yes, sure did. Man, I've fell in love with his music. It wasn't until I got into college and I heard the Operation Doomsday album, and I'd never heard anybody have his approach and just the way he put his words together.
Yeah, it's
This man,
poetry.
yeah, the man rhymed mental techniques with pencil neck geeks. I'm like,
Yes.
come on, this Doom is that guy, man.
He was so good he had to come up with pseudonyms because he has so much material.
Yes, King Ghidra, Victor Vaughn. Oh man,
Mad Villain.
yes, I love the album so much.
A new sick story. Never met a girl who was too thick for me.
Yep. Man, tripping off the beat, kinda dripping off the meat grinder.
Meat grinder.
Oh my goodness.
Question. That was a good song.
Yes.
Question where we question how we give. Yeah, you said Doomsday. Food.
Rap
That album
snitches.
start
Telling all their business. Up in the court, they be their own star witness. Did you see the perpetrator?
My best friend. Oh my God. My best friend, man, he's a white dude from Long Island, and he says to me all the time, he's like, what happened to Mr. Fantastic? Why aren't we hearing more from Mr. Fantastic?
Yeah.
Jeez. I mean, Rap Snitch Knishes. That's probably it. If I had to pick a number one, Rap Snitch Knishes. It's a horror.
Yes. Doom was special.
Oh, he is. Of course, now since rest in peace, Doom. I'll wrap this up with he gave me Czarface. I had to give homage to Jay Electronica. I love his words.
Yeah, me too.
And see, Kendrick Lamar, I don't care. A lot of guys my age are like, I don't like new rap. I was like, I'm sorry. Kendrick Lamar is one of the preeminent talents of our time. Listen to the music and tell me you don't like him. And quietly, Danny Brown, man. I just thought it said Danny. I didn't know it said Danny Brown.
Oh yeah.
My other favorite, really though.
Yeah, come on, man.
God,
man,
how talented is Danny Brown?
Oh, he's awesome. I still play that 30 album.
I want to meet him.
Me too. Me too. And have you ever heard his podcast?
No.
Yeah, he's
down right now.
Yeah, it's called The Danny Brown Show.
Oh man. Oh, you know what? That did come up on my Spotify, but I didn't know it was him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's had a pod for probably about a couple of years now. But yeah, I didn't realize how funny he is.
I'm listening to that tomorrow because like I said, I just want to meet that dude, man.
Yeah.
I figured he was something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, man, really though. That's my jam right there.
Huh?
Especially Kendrick's verse. Bat 1,000, shoot 1,000. Man.
So that's my rough run through. I'm sorry if I miss Atlanta, but I respect Atlanta. But that was my rough run through, man.
Man, that's a great run through, man. You see, you got me in here nerding out over your list. That's the sign of a good list right there.
I'm gonna go listen to Doomsday when I get off of here.
Yeah, you and me both. So now we're going to get into the 5-question segment. So the first and last question I ask every guest I have on here, questions 2 through 4 are 100% random. So question number 1, what were Melvin's go-to school lunch items?
What say that again?
So what were your go-to school lunch items?
Lunch items?
Yeah.
What age?
Let's say high school years.
Or as a kid?
Let's say high school years.
High school? Circular pizza?
Yep.
Microwave is still a pretty new technology. Microwave circular pizza. But senior year we could go off campus, so I would get that Happy Meal with the 2 hamburgers.
The Happy Meal with the 2 hamburgers. Can't go wrong. Question number 2. If somebody was coming into Charleston, what were some good restaurant recommendations that you would give them?
That's a big question for me, Danny. You know, I eat everywhere. Right now, what's really hot and hitting with me though is King Barbecue.
Where is that?
That's on Reynolds or Remount Road. So you know, you ever been to Jackrabbit Philly
Yeah.
or seen the short grain food truck?
Mm-hmm.
It's that cat. It's a Japanese dude. And anyway, it's his new barbecue restaurant off of Rivers Avenue. Like I can't remember. I think it's Remount Road, and I'm feeling that right now.
Okay.
That is really good. Um, I'm still a big fan of like you want to get some fried shrimp, just go to Dave's Carryout.
Yep. Can't go wrong. You can't ever go
Can't
wrong
go
with Dave's
wrong.
carryout.
Just go to Dave's Carryout, get you some fried shrimp, some fried fish, walk away with it, take it in your styrofoam bag. You will be happy. I mean,
Yes.
people are always like, where's the soul food restaurants? And I tell them, you know, Hannibal's, whatever. But I'm like, you just can't. That's Charleston to me. Some fried
Mm-hmm.
shrimp or some fried fish. You know, Dave's Carryout. My favorite fine dining right now. Um, I'm a big fan of my neighborhood restaurants, so maybe Melfi's, but someone might not think that's fine dining. Um, if you can get in there, Fig. But the chef of Fig just opened his restaurant called Lowland Tavern. I think that's going to be something that you'll really enjoy.
Okay.
Um, but I like so many different restaurants, man. But those are a couple. Those are a couple. I'm trying to think if I need to give a shout out to any of my friends. Oh, cool little spot for a drink though. You know that Starlight Motor Lodge?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they got an upstairs little lounge up there. It's just cool. Sit back there, listen to some live music in the corner. It's like a band that sits in the corner of the room, and you walk in there. There's like a old, you know, middle-aged sister serving drinks up. It's just a cool vibe, man. Wooden
Okay.
panel everywhere. I'm
Yeah,
really enjoying.
I haven't been there since they redid that motel.
Yeah, yeah. You like it, man. You like
Question number 3. What was the most embarrassing moment you had as a kid?
it. Which one? Oh Lord. Was when I locked myself out of the house in my drawers.
And so did you have to call your parents to get them to unlock the door?
Yeah, I was homesick. And you know, when you were homesick as a kid, by the time 11 o'clock hit, you felt great. So
Mm-hmm.
I was running around playing music on my dad's stereo, dancing around. And the mailman came in and like, you know, they slipped stuff in the door, but something fell on the other side. And literally went to go open the door, get the mail, have my drawers on. And the wind, something blew the door closed behind me and the
Oh
door is broken,
no.
locked.
Oh no. Oh man.
To run across the street to Mr. Randall's house. He wasn't home. Miss Randall, his wife, was home, but they had a mini house next to their house where she had a beauty salon.
Mm-hmm.
So she was there fixing hair, had to knock on the door, and the lady saw me in my drawers.
And so
I just,
how did that dilemma get resolved?
she got me into the house and gave me some clothes because her grandsons used to stay over there. She got me some clothes, and I just stayed there until my mama got home. Yeah, your
Okay.
parents, you couldn't call your mom at work with no bullshit, so I had to wait
Yeah,
till they
that's
came.
true.
Wasn't no texting, mom, come get me. I didn't even know how to call my mom at work.
Question number 4. Who was your favorite teacher at Porter-Gaud?
Ooh, he's still alive. Wesley Moore, Mr. Moore. He's still alive, quite alive, not like he's old and decrepit. Lives on Folly Beach, and he uh he taught me how to really read. Books opened up for me with him because there was a standard books you had to read, and in his class, I can't remember. every private school has the standard black book, black or African American literature book. And I think it was Invisible Man that we had to read. And I can't say I completely understood the book, but I did understand it at the time. I do now, and I've read it as an adult. At the time, I was not quite sure I was reading, but I was reading this book about this black man who was in this white world trying to perform and keep them happy, and how much it was eating up his soul. And that's what I remember. And I was like, wow. And then so for the assignment, he didn't say write an essay on this book like every other teacher. He said, write whatever you want that expresses how you feel. And we had just come across, we had just finished up a poetry section, and there's a poem by Walt Whitman called Song of Myself, where he was writing all over the page that it was supposed to represent all of his thoughts going back and forth. So I put together a poem after reading Invisible Man, which basically one side of the sheet, I was talking with my Charleston Geechee accent. The other side of the street, I was speaking proper English. It was just a day in my life about how I was going back and forth between the two worlds where I lived. I found out in the past couple of years that there's a word for that called code switching, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But Mr. Moore, he helped me find that voice.
Wow. Do you still
Mhm.
have that poem?
Yeah, yeah. They actually use it to teach classes in Porter-Gaud or teach lectures in Porter-Gaud for diversity, inclusion, or I'm sorry, community engagement and belonging. Yeah.
No kidding.
Hmm.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And last question. What was the
Hmm.
last thing that really made you laugh?
I laugh a lot. Uh, this is not so deep, but watching Larry David, the Larry David, what's the show called?
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yes.
When I was waiting for I was about to watch some of the new episodes, but I ended up watching some of the old episodes. And he's a genius. Do you watch it?
Yeah, very much so. I
That
love that
JB
show.
Smoove character?
Yeah.
He was
Leon
supposed to be a
Black.
temporary character. And I can't see the show without him. So I don't know if you remember there's an episode where Larry walks to the kitchen and JB jumps up and throws something in the garbage can. And he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Nothing, man." And he's like, "No, you were doing something." Long story short, JB Smoove, he was in the kitchen eating watermelon, and he didn't want to eat watermelon in front of a white dude.
Yeah.
Was laughing so.
I love his character.
Because it's true. You are like, man. How many times have I been in a situation like? I think Dave Chappelle did this too. Dave Chappelle did something similar where he was he was on an airplane flight, and the stewardess says to him, "Would you like the fish or the fried chicken?" And he was like, "Damn." You have the inner voice.
Yeah.
Fried chicken. Yeah, but I want to eat their fried chicken in front of. I had a deep laugh off of that.
Yeah, there's no shortage of laughs on that show.
No, no. So that was my most recent deep laugh. But I
Okay.
laugh a lot.
So if there's anything you want to plug or promote, the floor is yours.
Just I won't be long, Danny. We've been talking a while, but just talk about the concept of concierge medicine. It may sound like a plug for my practice, but it's not. But it's charlestonmedicine.com. And I want people to think about me or anybody. There's these kind of practices popping up everywhere. Is $200 a month is roughly what they cost. How much is that worth to you to be able to have that kind of relationship with your doctor? Because everyone, particularly African Americans, need a better relationship or a better understanding or a better health IQ. Families need to talk more about their medical history so their children can know what to look out for. Um, and when I do get clients, particularly, and this is not just black men, this is white men, this is men in general, they show up maybe in their 50s, and you don't realize by then a lot of the damage to your body is done. If you would engage someone, and not me, just any physician, any young man, I had engagement because I was in the military, and the military makes you have a physical every year. You learn so much doing that about how the body works and how you can better take care of your body. People don't realize this is kind of grim, but there was a study about calcification of blood vessels and plaques, and they were trying to figure out how early in your life do you start forming these plaques in your blood vessels. Well, they did a study where they were doing autopsies on cadavers in University of Maryland Hospital in Baltimore because they had a pretty steady supply of young people who died of violent causes. So they do these autopsies and get samples of their vessels. They're finding people with plaques and calcifications in their 20s.
Wow.
You say to yourself, how is that happening in people so young? I mean, look at what's happening. I mean, our kids, I have kids, and we go into this saying we're going to make sure our kids eat natural baby food and we're going to feed them good food. Them kids don't want to eat that because their friends are eating the stuff that's in the plastic bag, and it's a fight. So a lot of these kids, by the time they're in their 20s, they've been eating a lot of bad foods, processed foods. And so now we got to deal with the damage when we're adults. Well, it's not over. You can still do something, and you don't have to go and join Planet Fitness and spend 3 hours in the gym every day. If you just got out there and did some kind of light workout, exercise, walk, fast walk, bicycle, these things become infectious, and you start doing more engaged things. And cut your portions in half and try not to eat the potato chips, which is my vice. And thought about that alcohol, what it's doing to you. If someone is telling you that, you're not going to stop cold turkey. But if you come see someone who's regularly saying these things and encouraging you and saying, this is why this is happening, I think that over time it soaks in. But you're not going to have that relationship the way medicine is now. The way medicine is now, you call the doctor, I want a physical. Okay, we'll set you up for a physical in 2 months. You see that doc, they spend about 15 minutes with you. This is everything we saw in the blood work. This is what you need to do. I'm going to send you to the cardiologist, blah, blah, blah. You don't see the doctor again for another year.
Yeah.
What kind of relationship is that? What are you getting out of that relationship? I don't know. You don't have to come see me, but see somebody and get serious about your health. That's my plug.
Man, I could not agree more.
And drink water.
Yeah, for real.
Yes.
That's water. Water is paramount.
Yes. Yes.
So again, Doc, thank you so much for being a guest on here. I could not tell you, I cannot begin to tell you how much I enjoyed this conversation with health and hip hop. Where else are you going to find that?
What more could there be?
Right.
I enjoyed talking to you, Danny. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And thank you, listener. Make sure you like, download, and subscribe to Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube page. You can find me at Danny Foxworth 843. There you can find all the video versions of all of the episodes for this podcast, as well as my baseball podcast at The Plate with Danny Foxworth. And for Melvin and myself, this has been another episode of Since We Last Spoke. And until next time, y'all be good. Peace.